Live stuff. Hey guys, Rick here with episode 11 of Cage Side Convos.
What up? Yo, and this is Quince. So this is part 2 of our Stoicism series. The first week we kind of touched base and broke down Marcus Aurelius's meditations, and we broke down all of his writings. Kind of into the 6 tenets in which he saw Stoicism affecting our everyday life. Some of those tenets were the mind of a sage, objectivity, meditation, and the power of awareness, physical daily exercise, the importance of keeping a journal, as well as recapping your day. So this week we're going to jump into the 4 cardinal rules of Stoicism, I think kind of outlined by Seneca at the time, mostly by Seneca. What do you think? Was it by him?
Yeah, so I think obviously Seneca is a big player in the Stoic philosophy, but I think the 4 kind of pillars, I think, are more ordained by people that have studied Stoicism after the fact. And the biggest common threads that you see that run through all of the major Stoic philosophers and stuff. So the 4 basic pillars, I guess, or 4 basic tenets of Stoicism being practical wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Mm-hmm. And we'll kind of jump into those and use that as a framework this week to kind of build off of and dive into those a little bit. Okay. Similar to how we did last week, I'd say, and kind of starting with practical wisdom, which seems on its face, what the hell is practical wisdom?
Right.
It sounds like this mystical thing, right? Mm-hmm. But basically, and the way it relates back to Stoicism and what you see the recurring theme in most of the Stoics, practical wisdom is basically just logic.
Right.
Understanding how to, one of the big things we touched on last week was not react passionately and to take our time and to think and react logically and understanding the outcomes of what our actions are going to be.
Right.
So in doing that, we have to establish what our goals are, what our desires are. We talked last week or every week, I guess, about purpose. So having the practical wisdom and the foresight to understand how our actions are going to affect others, mm-hmm. and trying to always act in a way that benefits not only ourselves but other people as well.
Right.
And
I think it's important because it stems from the fact of our actions and our thoughts are truly the only thing that we have control of. Right. Everything out of our control, are some of the things that cause us these that inner turmoil. Right. If we can't let it go in that sense, sure. And way to relieve ourselves from those situations, is by using this practical logic. So I think that's why they place so much value on it.
Sure.
Because they say that's what separates us from the animals is
right.
the ability to use logic.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and it, that kind of notion, one thing that is discussed a lot is that how all logical beings are linked together by the fact that we can be logical. So basically all humans, all men, all women, everybody are united in this fact that we have the ability to act logically and we should.
Right.
And that links, I think, very directly to the notion of change, which mm-hmm. is one of the big things they talk about. One of the words that just popped up over and over and over again in the meditation specifically was ephemeral, which is temporary, fleeting, impermanent, right? Mm-hmm. And this notion that everything is constantly changing means that we have to be accepting of change, right? And that means that our philosophies, our mindsets, our knowledge base is going to change. So when someone presents us with new facts, new information, it's our responsibility to adjust our point of view and mm-hmm. adjust our actions accordingly, which is practical. And I think a truer sign of wisdom is that you are willing to change your point of view, are willing to change your actions based on what is factual,
sure.
and what is logical,
right.
And it can be a very humbling experience as well. You know, to when someone says, well, you did this and here's the new facts, and you have to say, okay, well, I was wrong. I have to change that. And for me personally, a lot of that happens in martial arts and training. You know, as you learn jiu-jitsu, you've been doing something in a very specific way for so long, and then you're whether it's your instructor, whether it's a friend, a training partner, or just a realization that that's not the most efficient way to do, you know, move your body, to do a certain submission, to do a certain escape, to do a certain pass, whatever it may be, and accepting that it's in your best interest and it's the most logical thing to change that, and not just being stubborn and say, well, I'm going to keep doing it this way because that's how it's done.
Right.
You know, it's detrimental to your progress. Again, not only on the mats, but in life in general.
Sure.
You know.
You know, I think one of the reoccurring mantras of my own, whether there were lines in music or, you know, something I write down always to keep in mind, is that I always tell myself to make sure that I leave room for change.
Yeah.
You know, just due to experience as up to now. You know, as far as, for example, you know, having setting certain goals and having certain goals that of course you want to accomplish and you work to accomplish, but along that way, I've come into certain opportunities that might take that direction elsewhere, but it's the best possible scenario or situation right now. And, you know, if I left myself with that tunnel vision, too overly focused on a goal, and missing the bigger meaning, you know, of the situation, I mean, I think ultimately I would, you know, miss out.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, you know, probably a few times when I first started working with music, you know, I was making beats and instrumentals and things like that, you know, and being on stage never crossed my mind. You know, writing never crossed my mind. But when given the opportunity, you know, I was open to that change.
Right.
Just even considering it.
Right.
And that allowed me to expand my understanding of really what it was I was chasing, what it was I was after and working towards in general. So, you know, very, very grateful for that. I think it's so necessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
So necessary.
And accepting that our purpose can change, our desires can change, our goals can change, not only as a matter of personal desire, but as a matter of what the universe offers us. You know, it makes it less daunting to accept that you were wrong. Right. You know, and you don't. I stopped framing it.
It's not even wrong. Exactly.
Yeah, it's just different. You know, it's not what I thought was going to happen, and accepting that change is going to happen, and there's nothing I can do about it. You know, we talked a lot of last week of kind of the dichotomy of control, understanding what you can and what you can't control. You can't control what the universe offers you, but you can control if you accept it, and you can control if you decide to change with it, and you can control if you're happy with accepting change.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, all response. You can control your response.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that kind of, I think, very neatly ties into the second pillar is courage. And especially as we first start experimenting with being wrong and with accepting change, I think it does take a lot of courage to trust that it's going to be for the best, you know, and trust that even if it's not a great change, even if you're not super happy with it right away, it's going to change again.
Right.
You know, so I think that in itself is an act of courage.
Yeah, act of courage as far as allowing yourself the vulnerability to be wrong.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Crazy.
For sure.
But vulnerability pops up yet again.
Almost every episode.
Almost every episode. It's but yeah, I mean, you know, and we've in our explorations of vulnerability itself, we've talked about how exposing yourself and being willing to be wrong and being willing to accept change and being open it leads to monumental change and self-growth.
Absolutely.
And like you said, it gets you away from that tunnel vision mindset. It makes you more accepting of opportunities that are in front of you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, courage, you know, certainly courage, standing up for one's belief is a part of, because even if you're wrong, you stand up and you define your belief and however it's met with the world, whether you find out there are things you can add on to that belief, in order to progress, or maybe you might learn from, being
Right.
wrong and being, adding on to your belief as far as some of the things that I can add on to it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So always something to be learned from courage, but
Yeah.
sometimes easier said than done.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like the way that you even kind of looked at courage even in a slightly different way than I did, because in order to voice our opinion and to stand up for what we feel is right and just, it does take courage too, because you might be met with conflict.
Sure.
You might be met with an opposing viewpoint.
Right.
You might be met, sometimes you might be met with violence.
Yeah.
But if we feel compelled to act in kind of in the name of justice and what we define as truth and what we see as right, we have to have the courage to do that even in the face of adversity.
Yes.
And if you're amongst like-minded people, so we talked about mind of a sage last night, thinking what others would do, surrounding yourself with like-minded people. If you're around like-minded people, typically the conflict that arises is going to be one of conversation, one of discourse, right? And it can be disagreement, you can have different viewpoints, but it's going to be one where we can politely and amiably flesh it out. Now, if you voice your opinion, or if you stand up for what you feel is right in a situation of unlike-minded people, of people who are inclined to violence or people who are inclined to act passionately, you could be put to death. Which, if I'm remembering my history correctly, I believe Seneca.
Seneca
right?
was.
Yeah, was put to
Nero,
death,
I think.
right? Yeah. So he was, he was speaking for what he thought was just and true and good, and he was put to death for it.
And and I think a lot of that stems from the fact that one of the first questions they ask, and I'm not sure if it was Aurelius or Seneca or the other dude, but before you take action, ask yourself one thing: is this what is good for humanity?
Right.
And I think that's where courage in part comes from.
Right.
In saying that, hey, I stand up for this not just for myself, but for the good of humanity. This is why I believe what I do, until proven otherwise. And if so, let me know. Bring it on.
Right.
But this is where I have strength, because I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this for my family, my neighbor,
Right.
my community.
Right.
And it's always about the progression of self, community, humanity.
Right.
So I do, I can see a lot of courage in that.
Yeah.
Find a lot of courage in that.
Absolutely. And that definition or that look at courage ties into the next pillar of justice. And I think that, we have to define justice for ourselves. And I think in doing so, we define justice in what's the best for everybody, right? Because when you find people that are greedy, people that have inclinations to hoard wealth, hoard resources, hoard happiness and stuff, right? They tend to act very myopically. They tend to act with a very small scope of the world, right? And very selfishly. So when you do that, it inclines people to act unjustly, right? And to do things that favor just themselves. And I think when you have a view of happiness and a view of fulfillment that's internal, right? A lot of times that drives you towards your purpose, right? And as we talked about purpose last week, a lot of times loops back into helping others in whatever facet that is. And like I said, sometimes having a purpose can be as simple as helping other people find their purpose.
Yeah.
Right? And when you start looking at how to make other people's lives better and how to help other people find fulfillment and how to essentially make the world better, then you start getting this more global, this more universal understanding of what justice is and helping other people, and so then you start to have an inherent backlash against people that act unjustly or people who act selfishly. And again, I mean, going back to, Seneca, if he challenged, Emperor Nero or,
Yep.
that's not a good look when you sit there and you essentially talk shit to a guy that has so much power, but that takes a lot of courage to act in the name of justice.
Right. And, because they believe that innately and due to logic, we know what's right and wrong. We're born knowing what right and wrong is, and there's virtue in doing the right thing. Even if people don't know you're doing it. I think Marcus Aurelius had a quote saying, an emerald shines no matter if it's spoken of, no matter if people say there's a value to it. An emerald's going to shine like it does. And basically he was saying, whether or not people know that you're doing good, do good. Because there's a part of that and connecting with that brings not satisfaction, but contentment in actions. And that sort of virtuousness. And I just agree quite a bit with that.
I like the quote of his, that is, I believe it's, feet do not seek praise for walking, hands do not seek praise for touching, like eye does not seek praise for seeing. Because these are, your feet are meant for walking, your hands are meant to be utilized as tools, your eyes are meant to see, right? And that's just their job, and that's what they do. So as humans, it is our job and it's our responsibility to act kindly to other humans, And
I like that a lot.
Yeah, so you don't, if you go around seeking praise for it, it leads to a lack of fulfillment, because a lot of what you do when you do good goes unnoticed, and which you have to be fine with that, because, retiring into yourself at the end of the day, when you recap, when you look back on what you did, you have to know that you did the right thing, you did the kind thing, One of Seneca's things was seek your own applause. Know that you can rely on yourself to be content and to be happy with your actions of the day. And again, acting always in the name of justice and always in what's going to be in the best interest of everybody. It's difficult sometimes, and it's hard to know. Like you said, you were born knowing what's right and wrong, but our view and our understanding of the world, it can change that. Because what I thought was a good and just thing when I was 16, I don't necessarily adhere to now. I've seen the world differently. I've learned new things. I've seen the long-term effects of, certain opinions I had when I was a kid. A young adult in my 20s now. Getting into my 30s and stuff. It's constantly evolving and changing.
Sure, and that's why it cycles us back around to that first cardinal rule, as far as leaving room for change. And that adaptability. Because these are things that by no means are we perfect. These are, as far as justice, these are things we strive for. As far as courage, these are things we strive for, and that's the beauty of it, because you're not going to get it all right today. You're not going to make every right decision today. You're not going to be as just as possible today, but tomorrow, and taking this information and being able to recap it and keep it fresh in your mind and learn from it. And we make those better decisions. We make those better changes. Tomorrow. So it's always a striving for. It's never a definitive right now.
So I think that ties in, to temperance, to acting kind of, so an interesting kind of almost paradox is we want to act consistently, but everything constantly changes, right? So temperance kind of defines, in my mind, it's defined as, finding that even keel, that consistency, not overindulging in one feeling or locking ourselves into one lane of thinking,
moderation.
Absolutely. And the only way you can be consistent in the face of change is always striving to establish our definition of justice, always trying to act courageously, regardless of the consequences, but being willing to accept that day to day, our idea of justice may change. The look of courage may change. The adversity we face is going to always change. The people we have around us to prop us up and to help us and propel us forward is always going to change. But you can still seek that consistency in that you always want to act kindly and act in the best.
In accordance to
your nature.
However you define it today.
Now that doesn't mean flip-flop day to day and you know, just like every day, however you wake up, just, you know, however the hell you feel.
Self-serving,
Yeah,
sure,
yeah,
sure. But that, of course, brings us back to practical. So you can't escape.
Yes.
You can't get out of these sort of these cardinal rules they put together.
Sure.
You know,
kind of check and balance each other.
exactly. You know, if you're being honest to these and to yourself, you know, and to some of these ideals, you know, certainly temperance is a moderation in which, you know, we go about these things and strive toward.
Right.
I had it right here. But, you know, temperance comes from the fact that, you know, it goes back to control, you know, because you don't have control of what happens to you on a daily basis. You have control of your response.
Right.
And they believe that the things you have control of are your behavior, like I probably mentioned before, and your thoughts.
Right.
And, you know, given these scenarios, the ability to approach a situation with a balanced mind, a balanced approach, or response to it allows you to utilize that logic given the situation, you know, which of course gives you an outcome that's going to, you know, leave you better off than were you to act emotionally or impulsively.
Right. And so kind of building now from here, one of the huge concepts that you see all of the Stoic philosophers talk about a lot is impermanence, is how everything's temporary, how everything's ephemeral, right? And that's been my favorite word now for like the last 6 months. Sure. Is ephemeral, right? So whether it's, you know, whether the moment is good or bad, even kind of lets us be a little more forgiving of ourselves too, because even if we slip up, if we act passionately, if we act unkindly, or if we act out of, you know, in accord or not in accordance with our nature, if we feel that we've done something in error, okay, that's fine. It's over now. We have to move forward from it.
Right.
And you have to learn from it, and you have to keep pushing forward because you don't have the time to sit there and wallow in it.
Right.
We've talked, we touched on it last week, and we've talked before about whether you succeed or you fail, you have to move forward.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
and one of the things I like to, some advice I heard was whether you succeed or you fail, you give yourself 24 hours. You can celebrate your success for 24 hours, or you can wallow in your failure for 24 hours. After that, you have to get back to work. You have to move on, right? Mm-hmm. Because you don't have the time.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest things. The Aurelius quote. It's don't act as if you will live for 10,000 years. You know, don't sit there and waste your time. Well, like death hangs over you. Mm-hmm. You're going to die, and you could die right now. And if that's the case, do you want to be stuck wallowing in something you
Mm-hmm.
messed up? You know,
Right.
do you want to be trapped in celebration of something that's already gone?
Sure.
You know, you're going to be forgotten. Your loved ones are going to be forgotten. The people who remember you are going to die, and they're going to be forgotten. You know, all we can do is trust that yes, we're going to do the right thing as we know it right now,
Right.
and practice doing that.
Yeah. And you know, and that is a statement as far as, oh, you know, death hangs above you. At first glance, sounds like a very remorse
Right.
concept.
Right.
But if you can break through that, you'll understand how freeing it really is. Because these failures or successes or situations don't hold us back. Yeah. You know, they don't hold us back, and it gives us the opportunity to see, you know, what it was that got us in that position. You
Right.
know, that sense of reflection, and it allows us to be able to move forward and to move quicker, you know, in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this when I really started jumping into this, man, it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. That's almost essentially what I've kind of tried to craft my own philosophy around. So day one, you know, today's the first day that you have. It's the only day that you have,
Right.
and you have to force yourself to make the best decisions you have and make the changes that you still set yourself up for success long term. You know, you make the best actions now with a mind towards the future. I don't think this means we completely forget that there's a future, right?
Right.
And we take into account that yes, okay, if we fuck up today, then tomorrow we have a chance, but don't take it as given.
Right.
You know, we hope that tomorrow we're going to have a chance, but that's still, you know, it forces us to be the best we can right now.
Mm-hmm.
And in listening to the TED Talk on Seneca, he talked about how, you know, Seneca was very rich, but he always viewed his wealth as temporary.
Mm-hmm.
At any moment, it could be gone, right? At any moment, my car could be gone. At any moment, my house could be gone.
Yes.
At any moment, all my friends could be gone. At
Yes.
any moment, I could be gone, you know? And with that in mind, it, like you said, at first you think, man, that's daunting. That's almost seems cynical and scary and sad and you know, glasses half empty kind of way to look at the world.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really examine it and accept what that really means is that, okay, right now make the best of every single thing you have.
Right.
And I had a moment like that this morning when I woke up. I was running late, and I know at the very least on Tuesday mornings I have to be out of bed and leaving my house at 7:15. That's what keeps me on schedule. That's what I've committed to doing for myself. That's my discipline.
Mm-hmm.
So 7:15 this morning, it's cold in my house. I was under the blankets. I didn't want to get up, and I was like, fuck it, I've got to get up. And I kind of got out of bed a little begrudgingly and got all my stuff together, hopped in the car, was coming up. And I was recapping a lot of the Stoic stuff that we had talked about. And it hit me that I would be better served to embrace moments like that. Aurelius talks about it in the Meditations is don't rise from bed begrudgingly. You know, no matter what the situation is, be glad that you can get up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this, I mean, how many times have you heard that thought reflected in memes and motivational posters and by any number of motivational speakers and stuff? Like, just be happy for the day, be grateful for the day. But it's true, you know, if you drag your ass out of bed and if you're in a bad mood, if you're miserable, if you're upset about getting up, what if you died right then?
Right.
What if you were struck by lightning and you died?
Sure.
Right? What if for some reason time just stopped and that was it? That was the last thing you did was you were pissed off about getting out of bed.
Right.
That's a shitty way to die.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And again, you know, we're human and it's in our nature to not want to get out of a warm bed on a chilly day and stuff. So it's important and it's okay to feel that way, but we always have control over how we act. And
Absolutely.
we can act the best that we can in that moment.
Absolutely. And you know, and that's why we put an emphasis on purpose.
Yeah.
You know, so much because in those times where it's cold out, you got the warm bed, you know, you just don't want to get up. Having that purpose and redefining that purpose is that spark that's going to get you to move when you don't want to.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's cold for everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But people are up earlier. People are get out there when it's colder.
Right.
You know, but they're driven by a deeper purpose at times.
Right.
Whether it's, you know, within self or whether it's financial or material, and you know, and bring it back. Kind of what you were talking about as far as happiness goes, and putting that on. I think it was Seneca you were saying, you know, because he was rich, but often he would tell himself, whether it was his riches, the money itself, or the things he'd buy with the money, he's like, this money does not define my happiness.
Right.
You know,
Right.
these clothes don't define my happiness.
Right.
You know, happiness is something that is within self.
Right.
And for me, like I said, you know, that's defined by my purpose. You know,
Yeah.
that brings me happiness. I can go through, you know, a lot. You know, I can go through a lot, you know, to seek out in search of this purpose,
Right.
to redefine it, you know, and that just helps you keep going, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one thing for me, again, kind of putting a more positive spin on the word ephemeral and just the fact that that's the nature of everything is when you say getting through, you know, no matter how shitty a circumstance is, I fully understand and I trust the fact that it's temporary. It doesn't matter how good or bad, right? So if it's good, enjoy it while it's here, but don't cling to it. You know, wealth. You know, obviously the example of Seneca. You know, wealth is great. Well, you have it. You know, and there's been times where I've had enough money that I wasn't really worried about stuff, and I've been lucky enough in my life that I was able to afford to go to Costa Rica for a week, and
Right.
I've been able to travel, and you know, I can go out to Colorado and train once in a while and do these great, awesome things. But I also understand that it's not always going to be like that. And so I find myself appreciating it much more while it's there, and then on the flip side, when I'm broke, when I don't have the money to fix my car right away, when I get a parking ticket because I let my inspection sticker lapse because I didn't have the money to fix my car, fine. That's fine.
Right.
It's temporary. I'll get it fixed when I get it fixed, and that's all the more thought I need to put into it, because what's that going to do to me internally?
Right.
Is that going to stop me from being kind to people? No.
Sure. I hope not.
Right? Maybe I could be more kind if I had more money, but that's I think a silly way to look at it, right? For lack of a better word, because like you said, your wealth doesn't define your happiness. Your wealth also doesn't define your ability to be kind and to act kindly.
Right.
It might change the face of it, because there's people with a ton of money that are doing housing projects for the homeless, or helping with the water crisis in Flint, or doing humane activities over in third world countries and stuff like that, and they have the wealth and they have the money to do it, and that's great and that's awesome and that is kindness. But we can't build our lifestyle around something we don't have, or our thought, our opinion and view of what is good and kind around temporary measures.
Sure. And in these temporary struggles, I was reminded just yesterday, like I was telling you before, I had climbed my first mountain, and I wasn't necessarily fully prepared. I was like, well, I'm athletic, I have a certain amount of endurance, and that was about it. I'm like, whatever is to come, I'll make it happen. But there were certain points in which we were actually scaling up the mountain, and I was sweating, drenched in sweat, and being like, man, I wasn't prepared as much as I thought. This is tough. This is, it's difficult. I'm carrying a backpack. I've got my shirts tied around me, carrying waters, and I'm like, man, this is a struggle for sure. And then I would see people on their way down who had already made the trip, and they're just bouncing down the hill, and they've got these big smiles on their face, and here I am, drenched in sweat, all out of breath, and I'm like, oh, they went through this too. They made it to the top. They saw what there was to see, and their trip back is easy now. I'm like, that's going to be me in just a matter of time. So appreciate this struggle, in which gets me to the top of that hill, allows me to be a part of that view. Because there's always the other side to it. There's another side to it for sure.
So that's listening to you to talk about that again, something interesting kind of popped up in my mind. Well, I think it's interesting. I'll see if you do as well. So you talked about doing it again. About going to another mountain, getting to the top and seeing it again, right? And we kind of talked about how so that was the first time you peak, hit one of the peaks in the Adirondacks there, and that's an amazing, it's a gorgeous thing. And then the next time you do it, it won't be the same, right? And we talked about kind of that mental high of getting up there and seeing it for the first time and really taking it in. But it's gone now, right? So it doesn't matter that you did that. Obviously, you can appreciate it, you can look back on it in gratitude, but what'll make the next one exactly as beautiful is the fact that you'll be in that moment right then. And you don't have to compare it to the last time you did it, because it doesn't matter. Even if you did it the very next day, it wouldn't matter what you did the day before, because that moment's gone. And so that kind of ties into the practice of contentment and being in the moment. The line I really like is when hungry eat and when tired sleep, which seems, we do that. If I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. If I'm tired, I'm going to bed. But it's more about the notion of when you're hungry, eat. And while you're eating, be in the moment of eating. When you're tired, go to sleep. Be in the moment of sleeping. When you're on top of the mountain, be in the moment of being on top of the mountain. And don't think about all these other things. Like you said, when you're struggling going up, think about the struggle going up and appreciate it. And you can think of it in an understanding of the purpose of it and why you're doing it. But then when you get to the top, you don't have to think about the climb up. You don't have to think about the climb down. You're there. Right?
And and on the climb up, in my mind, I'm like, oh man, I I want to freestyle at the top. I want to write.
Right.
You know, I want to. I had a hold down Upstate T-shirt. I'm like, I want a picture with the shirt.
Yeah.
And all these things that I thought I wanted to do. But truth is, when I got up there, none of that stuff mattered anymore.
Right.
You know, it was just being right then and there. I just went up there, I sat down, you know, ate my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and just appreciated what was going on right now.
Right.
And I'm like, there aren't pictures that are gonna give someone the experience that actually coming up here yourself is gonna do.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Certainly at the time, there were no words that I could put in. There was no need for promotion. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was just to really be in that moment. Like, you know, sometimes you have to force yourself to be in the moment, but other times it's not even up to you anymore.
Yeah.
You know, kind of the awe of the situation kind of supplants you right where you are and forces you to just be.
Absolutely.
And man, there wasn't a better feeling. And even when I went down, you know, I was aware. I'm like, oh, all these things that I wanted to do, that I thought I was going to do, and that I was going to have to show for it afterwards.
Right.
I didn't have.
Right.
But that didn't deter my happiness whatsoever.
Right.
The happiness still existed, and it was still there, and that was just a good feeling, you know, to come across.
And it's so awesome to have moments like that and to separate ourselves a little bit from what we thought we wanted and appreciating, you know, kind of what we have. Especially the situation we're kind of both in, and I think a lot of people are in, is we're very active on social media, trying to build a brand and being business minded and stuff. And the purpose of why we're doing it, you know, we want to get our brand out there. We want to meet new people and help people and grow as people, you know, and fulfill what we think is our purpose. So sometimes I have found myself doing the same thing. You put yourself in a situation where I'm going to climb this mountain. I'm going to get to the top. I'm going to take a picture with my shirt with my brand on it. I'm going to post it on my social media page.
Thinking about your clever caption, you know, that you can do before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to get all these likes. Maybe I get someone new to follow my page, you know, and you get up there and you appreciate the true beauty that's in front of you, and you're like, you know what? Fuck all that.
Yes.
This is for me. You know, I just want to breathe and be here in this moment. And it's one of the most cleansing, calming feelings, man. It's so beautiful, especially to be able to disconnect from that constant engagement on social media and stuff, and just be, you know, when you're hungry, just eat and just be there, you know. I've definitely found myself sometimes, if I start feeling anxious or you know, because if you're anxious, you're thinking about the future, and I start making all these plans, and I start thinking about, you know, how this should be, what I should do here, and then I'll find myself getting so disconnected from the moment. I'll just take a deep breath, and as I exhale, I'll say in my mind, I'm here right now. Right. And I found that simple exercise has really helped me refocus and really start recapturing moments, kind of like the mountaintop moment, you know, and doing that more and more with sunrise, or when I get home from work every night and I pull into my driveway, I look up real quick and I see like the crystal sky and just appreciate the view that I have from my house, my little spot on, you know, in the world, and remind myself that this is where I am. The day's over, you know, I'm going to do my nighttime stuff, and then I'm going to bed. You know, I don't have to think about anything that, you know, happened that day. I don't have to wallow in anything that went wrong, or I don't have to, you know, go too crazy focusing and fixating on what went right, or thinking about what's going on the next day. You know, just being there where I am right then, you know.
And it's such a cool habit, and it works in a bunch of different ways as far as so I remember studying, this is years ago, lucid dreaming and things like that, and I really that was something I wanted to have at my disposal. And one of the things they told you is to practice your awareness, and every once in a while, just throughout your day, exactly what you did. Stop, look around, whether you appreciate, but say to yourself, this is me, this is right now, this is what's happening right now. And to make that a habit starts to become a subconscious thing. So then in your dreams, you start to stop and look around and be like, hey, this is me. This is happening right now. And sometimes you might be flying or some weird shit might be going on, and you're like, oh, fuck, this is a dream. This is a dream. But then that's the point in which you could break that barrier, and you have full access to that dreaming experience. But, it all starts with that awareness in everyday life, that allows you to appreciate what's going on right here and right now.
Yeah. And that's so I've had a couple of experiences myself where, with lucid dreaming, where I've realized I'm in a dream and realized I can manipulate certain facts of what's going on in the dream, shift the scenery and kind of create a new picture. And I've been able to tell myself, I'm dreaming right now, I have control over this, and been able to manipulate the dream. And that's one of the most bizarre experiences I've ever had, but one of the coolest things I've ever had. And never really framed it in the context of being in the moment. But that's exactly what you have to do. You have to accept that you're in a dream and not wake yourself up.
Right. Sometimes you get too excited.
Right. And then you go back to sleep and that dream's not there anymore, right?
No.
But so framing it in the context of just being that in the moment and accepting that's what's going on and making the best of it. That's a pretty freaking cool thing to be able to control,
That's awesome. We used to have conversations with fine print all the time about, we would call the dreams playground of kings. That's where people that when you were able to have that sort of focus and awareness and that calm temperament, because like I said, you could wake yourself out of a dream getting too excited. But to be able to utilize that in a dream and have that sort of control over environment, when essentially that's what this is here. This is what this is here. I mean, and it's not as direct, in this reality that we're living in, but it's absolutely a tool to change your surroundings and yourself and your frame of mind and things like that. It's
a beautiful metaphor, being able to control your dream. And again, it's all just accepting where you're at and embracing it. And knowing in your dream, the second you tell yourself it's a dream, the second you recognize that's what's going on, that dream's going to end. There's nothing you can do about that. That you are going to wake up from that dream. Fine. And you're okay with that, right? You don't mind that your dream ends. So why would you mind that you're going to die? Why would you mind that today's going to end, right? And tomorrow's going to end, the next day's going to end. Everything you have, is going to end. But it's just like lucid dreaming. Why would that bother you? Why not enjoy it? Why not make the absolute most of it while you can? Which, I think that might be one of my favorite metaphors we've ever stumbled on.
I like that one. I like that.
I'd say that's an awesome place to kind of let it wind down, you think?
Oh, I think so too. I mean, once we get started talking on dreams, I could go for another hour. I think you're right. Man. I appreciate you guys tuning in once more. Stoicism, honestly, personally, played a bigger role than I ever remember. Because this is something I used to read years ago that came back up. In part by conversation with you, but also, looking to kind of progress myself forward, always seeking new knowledge, and I find that old knowledge starts coming back around again. And to be able to relate it to things that are like the trust in the process, breaking that down for me, the amount of stuff, similarities, whether I consciously used it from all of these concepts or it was just something from my own experience, but how they match, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. So I really appreciate everything that I took from it then and now and in the future. So I mean, you guys can listen to us all day if you like, but this is just the tip of the iceberg as far as the concepts and what these sort of things have to offer. So looking into it further, I want to put more links underneath. But I think, if you guys appreciate this, you're going to love, what Stoicism has to offer.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things that I kind of learned from it was, it seemed to be like the parting shot that I picked up from some of the YouTube videos I was watching, but create your own philosophy, right? And when I first started seeing recurring themes, I would think, shit, man, why the hell am I doing what I'm doing? Because people have already done this. This has already been done. 2,000 years ago, it's already been done. This is old hat. But it's not.
No.
Because it's mine and it's my own personal look at it. And then I think that was one of the one of the bullet points from kind of Seneca's recap was create your own philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so day one for me is how I'm going to approach the world. You know, and how I can put, ultimately what ends up being a lot of the recurring themes through Stoicism into use in my life, and that's how I'm going to make my life better. And I can show somebody day one or teach them about day one, and then maybe they're going to go and read about Stoicism, and then they're going to create their own philosophy.
Right.
You know, you have trust in the process. You know, and you know, we sit here and we talk back and forth, and almost all of our ideas coincide with each other.
Right.
You know, it's just different packaging. So instead of being disheartened by it, I've learned to really be grateful that so many people have gone through it and can relate to it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's comforting.
Yes.
It's comforting.
Yeah, big time.
You know, to feel a part of that, you know, that whole.
Right.
You know, because time ceases to exist, honestly, and truth is left. You know, and it's just the truth inside. And I didn't even mean to, you know. I'm sorry, I had to. You know, I went up to the mountains yesterday. Sure. Now everybody's. I was making fun. I was saying something about we were at the top of the mountain, and there was this one dude with his dog. He's just looking over the top of the edge, and the dog was like, I'm like, everybody up here thinks they're a poet. You know what I mean? And that's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
But I guess that's what got into me. But it's true though.
Yeah.
It's comforting to say the least.
Yeah.
And it makes me want to keep going and keep learning constantly. So
absolutely, man.
Very, very appreciative.
For sure. Yeah, as always, man, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please drop us a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know your own take on it. Absolutely love to keep having these conversations, and I'll see you guys next week.
Awesome. Later, guys.